Welcome to BoundariesForEffectiveMinistry.org and Part 4, The Garden of Gethsemane and the Second Amendment, How Christianity Infringes and Trespasses on the Second Amendment. So what is Christianity anyway? Well, the Pope says Christianity is not a biblical religion.
La parole n'est pas dévalorisée, mais elle apparaît, au contraire, dans toute sa grandeur et sa dignité. C'est pourquoi le catéchisme de l'Église catholique peut affirmer avec raison que le christianisme n'est pas au sens classique une religion du livre.
So what kind of religion is Christianity? Well, Christianity is a huge group of sects or cults, each in disagreement with the others. They range from snake handlers who believe the striking serpent channels God's judgment on sinners, to Santa Claus blessing the infant Jesus, and to a man who claims to channel the will of God on earth. And one of its most beloved symbols reflects the pagan festival of lights at the winter solstice. And most of these sects are 501c3 corporate government churches who silence their moral voice to protect politicians and ministers who legislate against God's gift of life and the right to protect that life.
You are free to respect and appreciate the authority of the government that God gives to you. Honor the king. Honor the king. Do it anyway, whether the king deserves it or not. Even bad governments do God's work by keeping even a semblance of order in the streets.
In return for 30 pieces of silver in unneeded tax breaks, such churches must aid and abet their government masters to re-establish the divine right of kings, which has been soundly rejected by God, the English people in the 17th century, the American colonial churches in the 17th century, the Declaration of Independence in the 18th century, England's Queen Anne in the 18th century, the people of France in the 18th century, and in the 20th century Elizabeth II, who said, "For I know that a hereditary monarchy only exists with the support and consent of the people." And even Barack Obama, who claims the godlike right to decide personally who lives and who dies by drone, understands that ultimately all governments are in power only by the consent of the governed.
When I was in Cairo, shortly after I was elected president, I said that all governments must maintain power through consent, not coercion.
But the influence of the German philosopher George Hegel on Karl Marx reinstated the supremacy of the state and people's subservience to the state. And what Christian people have consented to is to be subjects and law-abiding citizens of earthly government. And many Christians have decided not to bear arms for their defense, which is perfectly fine, but they want to enforce their choice on those Christians who do bear arms for defense. However, self-disarmed Christians do not take personal responsibility for their choice. There are two differences between pious gun control Christians and pious Christians who bear arms for their defense. Gun control Christians refuse to advertise that they are proudly unarmed. But in danger, they call 911 for armed backup. Gun control Christians work to force their chosen helplessness on everyone. Christians who bear arms defensively respect the choice of gun control Christians to call on others to shoot for them, as this sign demonstrates on a front lawn which says, "My next-door neighbor wants to ban all guns. Their house is not armed. Out of respect for their opinions, I promise not to use my guns to protect them." Arming or disarming oneself is a personal choice, but gun control Christians instead play the hypocrite and get politicians who are terrified of an armed people to enforce their gun control rules for them. And hypocrisy is the only sin that Jesus chose for special denunciation. Other Christians act without hypocrisy and bear arms for defense, as these slogans show. Well, those Christian images would probably be devastating to gun control Christians who might react like these folks here. If you are a Christian who has disarmed yourself and your family, no problem, and good luck to you. And if you are a minister controlled by man's government who preaches against the right to life and its defense,
I'm free to make myself a slave.
Then good luck to you, because it is written by Matthew, "Not everyone who cries, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven. I will declare to them solemnly, 'Depart from me, you evildoers, I never knew you.'" This ends our 4-part series on the lessons of the Garden of Gethsemane and the Second Amendment, with 3 major findings: that Scripture, like the Second Amendment, authorizes the bearing of arms for self-defense, but forbids using arms borne for defense as weapons to assault others. And finally, that self-disarmed Christians who by preaching and by political activity try to force their decision on others, act contrary to Christian teaching, and trespass on others' God-given right to life and the means to protect that life from assault. Well, there you have it. This has been Boundaries for EffectiveMinistry.org. Thanks for listening.